I stood there in the dimly lit ballroom, the twinkling Christmas lights reflecting off the champagne flutes like tiny stars mocking my shattered world. My hands trembled as I clutched the small USB drive in my pocket, the one holding the evidence that would unravel everything. "Merry Christmas, everyone!" My husband, Mark, boomed from the stage, his arms slung casually around his secretary's waist, Sarah, with her perfect smile and that red dress hugging her curves. The crowd laughed at his joke, but I felt the bile rise in my throat. How could he stand there, pretending while our life crumbled? That night, I didn't just watch, I acted. And in the hush that followed, I wondered if redemption could ever come from such pain. Let me take you back, though, to before all this, to the life I thought was solid, built on years of quiet love and shared dreams. My name is Elena, and for 23 years, Mark and I had what I believed was a good marriage. Not perfect, mind you, no marriage is, but good. We met in college back when he was studying business and I was pursuing my degree in education. He had this easy charm, the kind that made you feel like the only person in the room. We'd laugh over cheap pizza in our tiny apartment, dreaming of the house we'd buy, the kids we'd raise. And we did just that. Our home was a cozy 2-story in the suburbs, with a kitchen that always smelled of fresh coffee in the mornings and herbs from the garden I tended in the afternoons. Mark worked as a mid-level manager at a tech firm downtown, the kind of place with open-plan offices and team-building retreats. He was good at his job, ambitious but fair, or so I thought. I'd pack his lunch sometimes, slipping in little notes like, "Have a great day, love," on yellow Post-its. He'd kiss me goodbye at the door, his cologne lingering in the air, a woody scent that used to make me feel safe. Our 2 kids, Janie and Lily, were the heart of it all. Jamie was 19 now, off at college studying engineering like his dad, calling home every Sunday with stories of dorm life and late-night study sessions. Lily, at 16, was still under our roof, her room a whirlwind of posters and makeup palettes. She'd roll her eyes at our old people music, but hug me tight after a bad day at school. Family dinners were sacred. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti or grilled chicken, but we'd sit around the oak table Mark had refinished himself, sharing the highs and lows. "How was your day, hun?" he'd ask me, his foot nudging mine under the table in that playful way. I worked part-time as a teacher at the local elementary school, molding young minds with stories and art projects. It wasn't glamorous, but it fulfilled me. Evenings, Mark and I would unwind on the porch swing, watching the sun dip behind the trees, talking about retirement plans or weekend getaways. "We've got a good thing here, Elena," he'd say, squeezing my hand, and I believed him. The little arguments over bills or whose turn it was to mow the lawn faded quickly. We were partners, or so the story went. But looking back, there were those quiet moments when doubt whispered. Not loud, not yet, like the way he'd started staying late at the office more often, blaming it on a big project, or how his phone would buzz at odd hours and he'd step into another room to answer. I chalked it up to stress. After all, the company was expanding and Mark was gunning for a promotion. "It's just work, babe," he'd say with a tired smile, pulling me into a hug that felt a little less warm each time. The Christmas party was an annual tradition, something I looked forward to. It was held at a fancy hotel ballroom, with catered food and an open bar. I'd buy a new dress, something elegant but not flashy, a deep green one this year to match the holiday theme. Mark would compliment me, twirl me around the living room before we left. "You look stunning," he'd murmur, his eyes lingering. We'd mingle with his colleagues, me chatting with the wives while he networked. Sarah had been his secretary for about 2 years, young, efficient, always polite when I'd drop by the office with forgotten lunches. "Mrs. Thompson, so nice to see you," she'd say, her voice bright and professional. But as the party approached that year, though, things felt off. Mark seemed distracted, snapping at little things like the way I folded the laundry. "Just leave it, Elena," he'd mutter, rubbing his temples. I tried to brush it aside, planning the kids' gifts and baking cookies for the neighbors. Life marched on the way it does until those small cracks start to widen. It started with a lipstick stain. Not on his collar, that would be too cliché, but on a napkin I found crumpled in his suit pocket when I was doing laundry. Red, bold, not my shade. I stared at it for a long moment, the washing machine humming in the background like a distant warning. Must be from a client lunch, I told myself, tossing it in the trash. But that night, as we lay in bed, his back to me, I couldn't shake the unease. His breathing was even, but mine was shallow, questions swirling in the dark. A few days later, another clue. A text notification on his phone while he was in the shower. I didn't mean to look, I'm not that type, but it lit up on the nightstand. "Can't wait for tonight. Miss you already. S." My heart stuttered. S could be anyone. Steve from accounting, maybe? But the emoji, a little heart, didn't fit. I set the phone down, my fingers cold, and pretended to read my book when he came out, towel around his waist. "Elena, you okay?" he asked, noticing my silence. "Yeah, just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. Inside, though, the seed of suspicion took root. I started paying attention. The late nights, the weekend meetings, the way he'd guard his phone like a secret. I chalked it up to stress. After all, the company was expanding and Mark was gunning for a promotion. "It's just work, babe," he'd say with a tired smile, pulling me into a hug that felt a little less warm each time. The weeks leading up to the Christmas party blurred into a quiet kind of torment. I'd lie awake long after Mark had fallen asleep, listening to the soft hum of the furnace kicking on downstairs, staring at the faint glow of the streetlight through our bedroom curtains. My mind replayed every odd moment like a film reel I couldn't turn off. The lipstick, the text, the way he'd started shaving on weekends when he never used to bother. Little things, but they piled up until I could barely breathe around them. I didn't want to be that wife, the one who snoops, who turns into someone she doesn't recognize. But one evening, when Mark was in the garage, supposedly fixing the snowblower, I picked up his phone from the kitchen counter. It was unlocked. He'd always trusted me with the passcode. Or maybe he'd just grown careless. My fingers shook as I opened his messages. There they were. Dozens of them. Sarah's name at the top, a string of conversations that made my stomach drop. "Can't stop thinking about last night," she'd written 2 days earlier. He'd replied with a string of heart emojis and words I didn't want to read. Photos, too. Nothing explicit, thank God, but intimate enough. Her in a hotel robe, him shirtless in what looked like the same room. Dates and times that matched his late meetings. My knees buckled, and I sat down hard on a kitchen chair, the phone still in my hand. The room smelled faintly of the garlic bread I'd baked for dinner, now sitting cold on the stove. How could everything look so normal when my world had just cracked open? I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, numb, reading until I couldn't anymore. Then I deleted my browsing history, set the phone back exactly where it had been, and went upstairs to fold laundry like nothing had happened. When Mark came in, cheeks red from the cold, he kissed my forehead and asked what was for dinner. I smiled, God knows how, and said the lasagna would be ready soon. My voice didn't even shake. That night, I lay beside him, wide awake, feeling the heat of his body like a stranger's. 23 years, 2 children, a home we'd painted and repaired together. And he'd thrown it away for someone half his age who typed kissy faces in texts. I thought about waking him, screaming, throwing his clothes out on the lawn, but I didn't. Something colder settled in me instead. I needed to be sure, and I needed to protect myself. The next few days, I moved carefully. I called in sick to school one morning and drove to a coffee shop downtown with my laptop. I created a new email address, one he wouldn't recognize, and started piecing things together. Hotel receipts in our joint credit card statement, charged as business expenses, a second phone bill I found in his desk drawer, paid from an account I didn't know existed, photos on his cloud backup that synced briefly to our family iPad before he deleted them. It was all there, clear as day. They'd been together for nearly a year. I printed everything, quietly, methodically. Screenshots, bank statements, messages. I tucked the folder into the bottom of my sewing basket in the guest room, the one place he never looked. Then I waited. The Christmas party was only 10 days away. He'd been talking about it nonstop, his big speech as the team lead, the bonuses being announced, how important it was for appearances. Sarah would be there, of course. Everyone would be there. I went dress shopping alone, chose a deep burgundy velvet gown that hugged my figure better than anything I'd worn in years. Got my hair done the day before. Soft waves, a little makeup that made my eyes stand out. When Mark saw me that night, he paused in the hallway, tie half nodded. "Wow, Elena, you look incredible." "Thank you," I said calmly, smoothing the fabric over my hips. Inside, I felt like steel. The hotel ballroom was beautiful as always. White fairy lights draped from the ceiling, a massive tree in the corner glittering with ornaments. Jazz music played softly while colleagues mingled, glasses clinking. I smiled, made small talk, complimented hairstyles and ties. Mark stayed close at first, his hand on the small of my back like nothing was wrong. Sarah floated around in that red dress, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes. Dinner passed in a haze. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, too much wine that I barely touched. Then came the speeches. Mark was scheduled near the end, something about team achievements and holiday gratitude. He'd practiced it at home, pacing the living room with note cards. I'd nodded along like a supportive wife. When his name was called, he kissed my cheek and strode to the stage, confident as ever. The applause broke out. He started strong, thanking the CEO, cracking a light joke about deadlines. Sarah stood near the front, beaming up at him. That's when I slipped away from the table. Earlier in the evening, while everyone was arriving, I'd found the AV guy, a young kid in a black polo who looked bored. I smiled, told him I had a special holiday video montage my husband wanted played as a surprise during his speech, gave him the USB drive and a generous tip. Right after he thanks the team, I said sweetly. He'd nodded, no questions asked. Now, as Mark wrapped up his remarks, and finally to the people who make it all possible. The lights dimmed slightly. The big screen behind him flickered to life. At first, it looked innocent. A photo of Mark and me on our wedding day, young and smiling. The crowd awed. Then another, our family at Lily's baptism. More murmurs of appreciation. Mark turned, surprised but pleased, thinking it was a tribute. Then the images changed. A screenshot of their messages filled the screen. Large, clear text. "I love you more than I ever thought possible." His reply, "You're my everything." The room went dead silent, except for a few gasps. Next slide, hotel receipt for a room booked under his name, 2 occupants. Then the photo of Sarah in the robe, time-stamped from 6 months ago. Another of them kissing in his car, taken from a distance. I'd hired a private investigator for just 2 days, enough to get undeniable proof. Mark's face drained of color. He stammered into the microphone, This isn't, turn it off." But the slides kept coming, one after another. Calm, factual, devastating. The final image was a simple text overlay in white letters. 23 years of marriage, 2 children, 1 lie too many. The screen went black. For a moment, no one moved. Then whispers erupted, growing into a wave of shocked conversation. Sarah stood frozen, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. Colleagues turned to stare at Mark, then at me. I sat quietly at our table, hands folded in my lap, watching him. He stumbled off the stage, face red, muttering excuses. Someone from HR was already heading towards him. I stood slowly, picked up my clutch, and walked out of the ballroom without a word. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped into the lobby, and only then did my legs start to shake. I hailed a cab outside the hotel, the driver glancing at me curiously in the rearview mirror as I gave him our home address. My phone buzzed incessantly in my purse, texts from Mark, no doubt, and maybe a few from shocked colleagues, but I silenced it without looking. The city lights blurred past the window, streaks of red and green from holiday decorations that now seemed garish, mocking. My heart pounded in my ears, a steady drumbeat over the hum of the tires on the wet pavement. What had I done? No turning back now. When I got home, the house was dark and quiet. Lily was at a sleepover with friends, Jamie still at college for finals. I flicked on the kitchen light, the fluorescent bulb buzzing faintly as it warmed up. The folder of evidence was still in the sewing basket. I pulled it out and spread the papers across the table, staring at them as if seeing them for the first time. Screenshots, receipts, all laid bare. I poured myself a glass of water, my hands steady now, and sat there until the front door rattled open around midnight. Mark burst in, his tie askew, face flushed. "Elena, what the hell was that?" His voice echoed in the empty hall, a mix of anger and desperation I'd never heard before. I looked up slowly, meeting his eyes. "What do you think it was, Mark? The truth?" He paced the kitchen, running a hand through his hair. "You humiliated me, in front of everyone, my boss, the whole team. How could you do that?" "How could I?" I echoed softly, standing up. "How could you lie to me for a year, use our money for hotel rooms, make a fool of me while I packed your lunches and raised our kids?" He stopped, his shoulders slumping. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Sarah and it just happened. I was going to end it." I laughed then, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. "End it? You've been planning trips with her, telling her you love her more than anything." I pushed the folder toward him. "I have it all here. Don't lie anymore." He glanced at the papers, his face paling further. "Elena, please, think about the kids. We can work this out. Counseling, whatever you want." "The kids?" I repeated, my voice steady. "You should have thought about them before you started this. Jamie and Lily deserve better than a father who cheats and lies." He reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "I'm done, Mark. I want you out. Tonight." His eyes widened. "Out? This is my house, too." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers are being drawn up. Adultery makes things simpler in court." He stared at me, the fight draining from him. "You planned this." "I protected myself," I corrected. "After what you did, yes." He grabbed a few things, a coat, his wallet, and left without another word, the door clicking shut like the end of a chapter. I locked it, then sank onto the couch, the adrenaline fading into a deep, aching exhaustion. Tears came then, hot and silent, soaking the throw pillow. Not just for the betrayal, but for the life we'd lost, the trust shattered like glass underfoot. The next morning, the fallout began. My phone lit up with messages from friends and family. Word had spread fast. Mark's sister called first, her voice hesitant. "Elena, I heard. Is it true?" "Yes," I said simply, stirring my coffee as the spoon clinked against the mug. "All of it." She sighed. "I'm so sorry. He's an idiot. If you need anything." I thanked her, hung up, and fielded more calls. Colleagues of his who'd become friends over the years reached out, awkward but supportive. "We had no idea," one said. "The office is in chaos." By afternoon, I learned the details. Mark had been placed on immediate leave pending investigation. Company policy frowned on office affairs, especially when it involved a superior and subordinate. Sarah was in the same boat, her desk cleared out by security. Whispers in the break room, sidelong glances, the kind of public shame that lingers. Lily came home that evening, her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide. "Mom? Dad called. He said he's staying at a hotel. What's going on?" I sat her down at the kitchen table, the same one we'd shared so many meals. "Sweetheart, your dad and we're separating. He had an affair. With someone from work." Her face crumpled, a mix of shock and anger. "What? How could he?" I held her as she cried, rubbing her back in slow circles like I did when she was little. I know it hurts. It hurts me too. But we'll get through this. Together. Jamie called later, his voice tight over the phone. Mom? Aunt Kieran told me. I'm coming home. No, finish your exams, I insisted. We'll talk when you're back for break. The days blurred after that. Mark tried to contact me, texts pleading for a meeting, voicemails full of apologies. I ignored most, responded only through the lawyer. The divorce proceedings started quietly. Asset division, custody arrangements. We'd always been joint on everything, but the evidence gave me leverage. The house would stay mine. He'd pay his share in cash from savings we'd built. No alimony, he made more than I did anyway. At work, my students' innocent chatter was a balm. Mrs. Thompson, look at my drawing, a little boy said, holding up a crayon scribble of a family under a rainbow. I smiled, but it stung. Colleagues noticed my quietness, offered hugs and coffee runs. You're strong, one said. You'll be okay. Socially, the ripples spread. Invites to couples' dinners dried up. Instead, girlfriends rallied with wine nights and walks in the park. He's the one who lost everything, my best friend Tara said over tea, her hand on mine. You exposed the truth. That's brave. Was it brave? Or just necessary? I pondered that in the quiet evenings, the house echoing without Mark's presence. The Christmas tree stood undecorated in the corner, boxes of ornaments untouched. I finally put it up with Lily, stringing lights while holiday music played softly. For us, I told her, not for show. Mark faced his own consequences. He lost the promotion, of course. Rumors said he was job hunting, but references were scarce. Sarah moved out of town, last I heard, to live with family. No dramatic confrontations, just quiet unraveling. Through it all, I focused on healing. Therapy sessions twice a week, where I unpacked the anger and grief in a sunlit office that smelled of lavender. Journaling at night, the pen scratching paper as I wrote out the pain. Walks in the crisp winter air, breath fogging as I reclaimed my thoughts. Spring came slowly that year, the snow melting into muddy puddles along our street, crocuses pushing up through the damp earth in the garden I'd neglected all winter. With it came a tentative sense of renewal, though my heart still carried the bruises of betrayal. I threw myself into routines that grounded me. Morning yoga in the living room, the mat unrolling with a soft thud on the hardwood floor, my breaths syncing with the gentle chimes from an app on my phone. Lily joined me sometimes, her teenage awkwardness giving way to shared giggles when we toppled out of poses. The divorce finalized in April, a stack of papers delivered by courier that I signed at the kitchen table with a pen that skipped slightly on the dotted line. Mark got his half of the savings, but the house remained mine, a sanctuary I'd fought for. He moved into a small apartment across town, close enough for the kids but far enough for peace. Our interactions were civil, mediated through emails about schedules and tuition payments. Take care, he'd sign off, a ghost of the affection we'd once shared. Jamie came home for spring break, his duffel bag thumping down in the hall as he hugged me tight. Mom, you look good, stronger. We talked late into the night over herbal tea, steam curling up from mugs that warmed our hands. He was angry at his dad, furious, really, but I guided him gently. He's human, Jamie. He made mistakes, but that doesn't erase the good times or the love he has for you. Lily struggled more, her grades slipping as she navigated the split. We started family therapy, the three of us in a cozy room with plush chairs and a box of tissues always within reach. The therapist, a kind woman with silver streaks in her hair, helped us voice the hurts. I miss how things were, Lily admitted one session, her voice cracking. I reached for her hand, our fingers intertwining. I do too, sweetie, but we're building something new, something honest. Work became my anchor. I took on more hours at school, channeling energy into lesson plans that sparked joy in my students' eyes. Colleagues noticed the change, the way I carried myself with quiet confidence. You're inspiring, my principal said during a review, her smile genuine. I even started a book club with a few teachers, gathering monthly over coffee and novels that explored themes of resilience and second chances. Laughter returned, soft at first, then fuller, filling the spaces where silence had lingered. Friendships deepened too. Tara and I took weekend hikes, our boots crunching on gravel paths lined with budding trees. "You've got this glow now," she said one afternoon as we paused at an overlook, the wind tousling our hair. "Like you've shed a weight." I nodded, breathing in the fresh scent of pine and earth. It was true. I felt lighter, unburdened by the secrets that had poisoned our marriage. Mark reached out in May, asking to meet for coffee. I agreed, choosing a neutral cafe downtown with outdoor seating, the clatter of dishes and murmur of conversations providing a buffer. Mark looked older, lines etched deeper around his eyes, his shirt slightly rumpled. "Elena, I'm sorry, truly. I ruined everything." I stirred my latte, the spoon tinkling against the ceramic. "You did, but I've forgiven you. Not for you, but for me. Holding on to anger was killing me." He nodded, eyes downcast. "Sarah and it's over. She left after the scandal, and the job, I got let go, starting over at a smaller firm." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it. Not out of pity, but because life had taught me that pain ripples out, touching everyone. We talked about the kids, neutral ground, and parted with an awkward hug. No promises, no reconciliation, just closure. By summer, the healing felt more solid. Lily and I planted new flowers in the garden, vibrant petunias and sturdy sunflowers that turned their faces to the light. Jamie visited often, bringing stories from campus that made us laugh until our sides ached. I even went on a date, a setup from Tara with a kind widower from her church. Nothing serious, just dinner at an Italian place where the pasta was al dente and the conversation flowed easy. It reminded me I was still alive, still capable of connection. Looking back, the betrayal had been a storm that uprooted everything, but in its wake, I'd grown roots deeper than before. I learned that strength isn't about enduring in silence. It's about speaking truth, even when it shakes the world. And family? It's not just blood or vows, it's the bonds we choose to nurture through the hardest times. As the days lengthened, I found peace in small rituals. Evening walks with the dog we'd adopted, a fluffy mutt named Buddy whose tail wagged like a metronome of joy. The house felt full again, not with Mark's absence haunting it, but with our presence. Lily's music drifting from her room, Jamie's calls, my own quiet contentment. One evening in late June, as the sun hung low and golden over the backyard, casting long shadows across the grass, I sat on the porch swing with a cup of chamomile tea, the steam carrying a faint floral scent that mixed with the earthy aroma of freshly cut lawn. Buddy lay at my feet, his paws twitching in some doggy dream, a comforting weight against my ankle. It had been 6 months since the party, and the raw edges of pain had softened, like a scar fading under time's gentle touch. I wasn't whole yet, not completely, but I was mending, stitch by invisible stitch. I started volunteering at a local women's shelter on weekends, drawn there by a flyer I'd seen at the library. The place was modest, with peeling paint on the walls and a kitchen that always smelled of soup simmering on the stove. The women there shared stories that echoed my own, betrayals, losses, quiet desperations. I'd listen, offer a hand to hold or a shoulder to cry on, and in helping them, I helped myself. "You've been through it too, haven't you?" One woman, Maria, asked me once, her eyes sharp despite the bruises fading on her cheek. "Yes," I admitted, folding linens beside her. "But we're more than our stories. We're survivors." She nodded, a small smile breaking through. Those moments reminded me of my own strength, the way I'd stood tall that night in the ballroom, refusing to be diminished. Lily flourished in her own way. She joined the school track team, her sneakers pounding the pavement in rhythmic beats that seemed to chase away her anger. "It's like running from the bad stuff, Mom," she said one afternoon, sweat-damp hair sticking to her forehead as she gulped water from the fridge. We baked together on Sundays, chocolate chip cookies with extra chips, the oven's warmth filling the house with sweetness that pushed back the bitterness. Her laughter returned, genuine and light, and she even started talking to Mark again, short calls that ended with, "Love you, Dad," in a voice that held forgiveness, if not forgetfulness. Jamie visited for the summer, taking a job at a local engineering firm to stay close. We'd hike together on weekends, trails winding through forests where birdsong drowned out the city's hum. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he said during one outing, as we rested on a log overlooking a stream gurgling over rocks. "The way you handled it, not just the revenge, but after, you're teaching us what real strength looks like." His words warmed me more than the sun filtering through the leaves. We talked about his future, his dreams, and I realized our family hadn't broken. It had reshaped, stronger in the fractures. As for romance, it crept in unexpectedly. The widower from church, Tom, became a friend first, coffee dates turning into walks in the park where we'd share stories of our pasts, over benches worn smooth by time. He had a gentle laugh, crinkles at the corners of his eyes that spoke of lived life. No rush, no pressure, just companionship that felt like a soft landing after a long fall. "You're remarkable, Elena," he said one evening over dinner at a quiet bistro, the candlelight flickering on our wine glasses. I blushed, unused to compliments that felt earned, not obligatory. Mark and I co-parented with cautious respect. He attended Lily's track meets, cheering from the sidelines with a sign he'd made himself, the marker smudged but the effort clear. At a family picnic for Jamie's birthday, we sat at opposite ends of the table, but the tension had eased into something neutral, like acquaintances sharing space. "Thanks for coming," I said as he helped clear plates, the clatter of dishes masking any awkwardness. "Of course," he replied, his voice subdued. "I miss this, us." I didn't respond, just nodded and turned away, focusing on the cake crumbs and laughter around us. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, it meant moving forward without the weight. By fall, I had enrolled in an advanced teaching certification, nights spent at the computer with notes scattered like autumn leaves. The house evolved too. I repainted the living room a soft sage green, hung new curtains that let in more light. Small changes, but they made the space mine, infused with fresh energy. Reflecting on it all, I saw the lesson clear as day. Betrayal doesn't define you unless you let it. It's a chapter, not the book. I chose dignity over despair, action over apathy, and in doing so found a version of myself I'd forgotten existed, resilient, capable, worthy of joy. The pain had been a teacher, harsh but honest, showing me that love isn't blind trust, but earned respect. And family? It's the people who stand by you, not just in the good times, but when the world cracks open. And here I am now, years later, sitting in that same porch swing on quiet evenings, watching the seasons change and feeling a peace I never thought possible after that night. The betrayal cut deep, deeper than I can ever fully explain. But it also woke me up. It showed me that staying silent to keep the peace isn't love. It's just fear wearing a mask. Speaking my truth that Christmas night wasn't about destroying Mark or Sarah. It was about refusing to carry their lies anymore. It was about choosing dignity for myself and honesty for our children. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights when the house felt too big, too empty, and mornings when getting out of bed took everything I had. But time, therapy, and the love of my kids pulled me through. I learned that healing isn't a straight line. Some days you're strong, others you cry over an old photo. But slowly, surely, you rebuild. And the life you create on the other side, it's yours, truly yours. No more pretending, no more wondering if you're enough. If you're watching this and you're hurting right now, if you've discovered something that shattered your world, please know this. You are stronger than the pain. You deserve truth, respect, and a love that doesn't make you question your worth. Sometimes justice comes quietly, through boundaries and new beginnings. Sometimes it comes in a single moment of courage, like mine did under those twinkling lights. I don't regret what I did, not for a second. It set me free. So I want to ask you, from my heart to yours, if you were in my place, carrying that kind of secret pain, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have found your voice? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep sharing these real-life journeys together. Thank you for listening. Take care of your hearts, loves. Until next time.